Ring security cameras have bestowed the internet with some of the most bizarre viral videos out there. From clips showing chaotic neighborhood activity to chilling nighttime visits by unknown figures, it's unbelievable what's being caught on these devices every day. While most Ring recordings are uploaded for the amusement of you and I online, there are some Ring videos that have far more serious implications. As on occasion, Ring footage has captured some rather disturbing crimes committed by society's most deranged. Crimes that have since been solved thanks to the videos themselves and the assistance of law enforcement and internet detectives. From a handcuffed victim escaping capture caught on camera, to burglars going undercover as delivery drivers, to a mass murderer's arrest caught in 4K on a Ring device, these are the Ring camera crimes. Today's video is sponsored by PDS Debt, the debt relief experts. With the cost of living near all-time highs and interest rates spiking, it's becoming more common for folks to have problems with debt. And that's where PDS comes in. If you're dealing with a debt headache, PDS has customized solutions available for anyone struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, and medical bills. Behind on your monthly payments and running out of options? PDS is worth checking out. PDS can help you roll your various debt payments into one lower and more manageable monthly payment. Anyone with over $10,000 in eligible debt qualifies, and there's no minimum credit score to use PDS. Bad, poor, fair credit, all of it's accepted. So to sum it up, with PDS you could potentially save thousands of dollars and pay off your debt in a fraction of the time. PDS Debt is offering free debt analysis to my viewers just for completing a quick and easy debt assessment. You guys can go to www.pdsdebt.com/wavy to do so. That's pdsdebt.com/wavy. Our next story details the case of nightmare neighbor Dominic Austin, a man who was arrested after extremely disturbing threats issued by him were caught on Ring. 19-year-old Dominic Austin had apparently been making an Oregon apartment complex a living hell for the local tenants. Dominic, also a tenant in the apartment complex, went on a complete rampage in the summer of 2023. The man caught repeatedly approaching a door with a knife in hand while issuing ominous threats to the tenants inside.
I'm about to get murdered. Call the cops.
The victims of this story, New Brittany Smith and her elderly mother, had been some of the prime subjects for Dominic's wrath, facing harassment and abuse from this guy beginning in June of 2023. Dominic's crazed visits would feature an assortment of vulgarities and slurs. At one point, the man even threatened to sexually assault and kill them. As a result of this and other incidents, New Brittany would contact authorities and report this guy. After alerting authorities, she filed for a restraining order against Austin. But even with a legal order protecting her, the man's fury couldn't be contained. Austin would continue his unhinged visits to New Brittany's door, engaging in menacing and brutal harassment, violating the stalking order 10 separate times. Each of Austin's cantankerous and horrifically bitter tantrums were observed by a Ring camera and were reported to police each time. These recordings showcase the man's increasingly bizarre and disturbing behavior. Finally, in September of 2023, Dominic Austin was notified by the Landings at Morrison Apartments, the location that all of this harassment had been taking place at, that he was being thrown out of the complex. And what do you think happened when Dominic was told that he was kicked out? He just turned up his harassment even more. Feeling as if they had gone through every option legally and with law enforcement, the tenants that Dominic had harassed had no other choice but to upload the Ring videos of this disturbed man online. Social media caught a glimpse of these insane videos and urged local authorities to actually do something about the man. And after public pressure, law enforcement in the area would finally step in. Dominic Austin was arrested on September 20th of 2023 and given 10 charges related to violating a protective order and 1 count of menacing, which is a felony. Upon his arrest, it was revealed that the man had another stalking order filed against him on August 23rd, which was obviously violated as well. In the wake of the social media support, New Brittany would post a GoFundMe in which she asked for money to get her mother out of the complex and into another residence, and within a day she was able to raise $10,000 to this cause. She also retained an attorney, citing that the apartment complex failed to protect their tenants and continuously allowed a pattern of abuse from Austin. Quote, "I was failed by the system and the landings at the Morrison. I don't feel safe because he's in jail today. I don't know what tomorrow is going to be. He could be released at any time, then what happens next?" On social media, the local police were also accused of negligence for not stepping in earlier. Under pressure, they would issue a response. Quote, "We are aware of the terrible conduct of the suspect in this case, including statements that indicate the motivation for the crime is hate or bias. We share in our community's concern and appreciate the unique impact bias crimes in particular have on victims. Although the suspect has been arrested and is currently in custody, the investigation is continuing. We are working with the district attorney's office to ensure the suspect is charged with the appropriate crimes." And with that said, Austin was further indicted by a grand jury on 33 charges: 3 counts of attempted burglary in the first degree, 4 counts of unlawful use of a weapon, 13 counts of menacing, 3 counts of bias crime in the second degree, 10 counts of violating a court stalking protective order. As a result of this incident, Dominic Austin was jailed at the Multnomah County Jail and held on a $20,000 bond. On the evening of July 21st, 2021, an unsettling event was captured on camera by a Ring home security device in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was an event that had the lone woman inside this home fearing for her life and the internet hunting for the man responsible for the scare. This is the story of Are You Sure?
What? Are you sure? Are you sure?
At approximately 8:19 p.m., a tall bearded man was caught on camera approaching the door of a South 6th Street home only a short distance away from downtown Las Vegas. The unexpected visitor walks up to the door, presses the Ring doorbell, alerting the lone female occupant of the residence to his presence. Not recognizing who this visitor was after checking the Ring app, she goes up to the door and sort of investigates, and after confirming that she doesn't know who this stranger is, she does her best to ignore the man, hoping he'll eventually go away.
Are you sure? I just rang your doorbell.
While seemingly pleasant and cordial at first, the longer the footage rolls on, the more you can tell there's some screws loose with this guy, as his demeanor and speech suggested that he might have been high on drugs or just was downright crazy.
Are you sure? I just rang your doorbell because I have a couple questions for you. Are you sure? I just rang your doorbell because I have a couple questions for you.
And the man continues to repeat the phrase, "Are you sure?" over and over again in this really creepy way.
Are you sure? I just rang your doorbell because I have a couple questions for you. Are you sure? What? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Around this time, likely panicked by this persistent creep at her front door, the woman inside the home had apparently contacted her husband. Unfortunately, this man was at work during the time of this horrific visit, but that being said, he would hop on the Ring camera audio feed himself and attempt to dismiss the deranged visitor. And his attempt at doing so would cause this stranger to reveal the truly horrific intentions that he had for visiting this house.
So who are you?
What? Yeah? Are you sure?
Who are you?
Hey, I just had a couple questions. I just wanted to ask you about the TV show. Yeah, can you hear me? What I'm looking for is for the girl that's in the house to come out here because I'm going to murder her and kill her.
Yeah, I don't think this guy could have been any more clear in regard to why he was there. Thankfully though, after this chilling confession, the unhinged lunatic abruptly walks away from the door and leaves the property, all while repeating his signature "Are you sure?" mantra. This harrowing ring camera footage was later uploaded to Facebook by the family, and it would go viral, unsurprisingly, due to its shocking content. National media would also discover the video and upload it to their respective YouTube channels, urging the public to help identify and report the man to authorities. In the meantime, on the ground in Las Vegas, there were many among the public that were on the lookout for this bearded stranger, whose identity was a complete mystery at the time. And the public's concern is certainly warranted in this situation. I mean, you heard what his intentions were for visiting that house. Hell, if he goes to another house and their door is unlocked or something, it's over. This dude needed to be taken off the streets and fast. Some locals would even come forward claiming that they had a similar experience with a man matching the description of our bearded creep, which certainly insinuated that he had a serial habit of perpetrating this behavior. With many in the Vegas community remaining vigilant for this man, he would eventually be caught by authorities. About a week after the 6th Street incident, this individual was identified as 40-year-old Christopher Sums, a California resident who had been visiting Las Vegas for an unspecified purpose for some time. When the Las Vegas police found and confronted Christopher Sums, the man initially refused to identify himself and referred to himself as the, quote, Holy Spirit. Sums would eventually be arrested and charged with aggravated stalking, coercing with threats of force, attempted burglary, and providing a false statement to a police officer. Law enforcement would later discover that Christopher was a wanted fugitive in California, and on July 27th of 2021, it was decided that Sums would be held without bail due to his fugitive status of the justice system. On July 29th, 2021, Christopher Sums would finally appear virtually in court. A judge would order him to complete a competency evaluation before his next hearing. On August 20th of 2021, the judge ruled that Sums was not competent to stand trial, and he was transferred so that he could receive further treatment to become fit for trial. A process that can unfortunately take a great deal of time. Once Christopher Sums is ruled competent to stand trial, he will face justice. But at the time of me recording this video, it appears the man has yet to go to trial. Whatever the result of this case is, it's certainly good that this individual is off the streets for the time being. What few of you likely remember in the wake of mass murderer Darrell Brooks's criminal trial is the fact that his arrest was actually captured on ring camera footage because he was arrested in front of some random guy's house trying to order an Uber. This is the story of Darrell Brooks's last visit.
I'm a grown man with grown kids. Ain't nobody gonna talk to me like that. Nobody.
Right, I need to take a break. This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. He pounded his fist. Frankly, it makes me scared.
For those of you unaware, Darrell Brooks is a mass killer that drove a vehicle through a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And while he has an expansive criminal history, I won't bore you with those details as it could take an entire video to explain all of it. But for the sake of this telling, we'll begin with what led up to his parade rampage and his fateful arrest in front of a ring camera. On November 21st of 2021, Darrell Brooks reportedly got into a domestic dispute that resulted in police being called to the scene. Apparently, before police arrived to this location, Darrell Brooks would hop in his red 2010 Ford Escape SUV and flee the scene before they could arrive. While he was escaping the police presence, Darrell Brooks found himself near the Waukesha Christmas parade. At around 4:39 p.m., 39-year-old Darrell Brooks arrived at the location of the parade and decided that in his haste, it was appropriate to smash through the attendees of this parade to get where he needed to go faster. The parade itself was live streamed, and many captured his rampage on footage. Mr. Brooks barreled his vehicle through the crowd. There were a total of 6 fatalities, including an 8-year-old child. 62 other individuals were injured as a result of this sadistic catastrophe. Darrell Brooks would eventually escape the area, and at some point his vehicle would become disabled and he went on foot. It would be at this time that Darrell Brooks would walk up to the home of a Waukesha resident and press their ring camera device. The footage of this incident showcases the wanted murderer approaching the front door and begging the resident to call him an Uber.
Hey, I called an Uber, and I'm supposed to be waiting for it over here, but I don't know when it's coming. Can you call it for me, please?
This homeowner would actually even let Darrell come inside to charge his phone and even reportedly gave him a sandwich. However, after some time, he started noticing police cars going up and down the road and got nervous and suspected that perhaps Darrell was a wanted man and told him to get the fuck out of the house. Surprisingly, Darrell would agree to do so. After the homeowner walked Darrell out to his front yard, a neighbor asked if the police were looking for the guy, and moments later, after Darrell was forced outside of the home, that's when police would identify him and he was swarmed and arrested. The entire event being captured on some random guy's Ring device.
My ID! My ID!
There's no sense of me going through the batshit insanity that was Darrell Brooks's trial.
So let's be accurate all on the record since you think you know so much.
Once
So
again,
we can
Mr.
open the
Brooks
door
is
on
being
we can
loud,
open the door on how old she told me she
disrespectful,
was when we met.
interrupting.
I'm sure many of you are aware of some of the highlights from this thing. On October 26th of 2022, Darrell Brooks was eventually found guilty of 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. The man was sentenced to serve 6 life sentences without the chance of parole. I found it rather prudent to include the Darrell Brooks arrest in this video because as far as I'm concerned, this is the only time the arrest of a mass murderer has been captured by a Ring device. It likely comes to no surprise to you viewers that what some on the internet have labeled as a crazy Karen has made it into this video. This is the story of Judy Klein, the Karen caught on Ring camera harassing a Hispanic family with racist visits. In St. Louis, Missouri, for over a year, Judy Klein would appear at the front door of the Suarez family, repeatedly visiting them, allegedly stealing their mail, hurling slurs and insults, and making vicious threats towards the Hispanic family. A Ring camera recording taken on January 5th of 2022 would capture the cantankerous Karen as she continued to disparage the family.
I'm coming back. You wait and see. Get out! It's my home. American citizen angry at you.
Judy Klein's antics would allegedly go as far as the woman breaking into the family's basement and destroying parts of their dryer and laundry equipment. On the particular day of this alleged incident, the woman was arrested and charged with aggravated burglary and first-degree property damage. However, it appears the case was later dropped. And with Klein no longer facing these charges, her harassment of the family would continue. After being released, Judy Klein would allegedly return to the residence on numerous occasions throughout the year. Suarez alleged the woman of stealing mail, and Judy was caught on camera calling them illegals.
Get out! You're a bunch of illegals. You don't belong on American property.
Judy even claimed that the Hispanic residents of the property were responsible for 9/11.
Do you have something to do with 9/11, Jack?
Similar to the case of Dominic Austin, the police and the court system were failing this family. So Fatima Suarez, one of the residents of this household, would turn to social media for help. Fatima Suarez would go on to post videos showcasing Judy's visits to their home on TikTok, and this insane footage would go viral. With pressure mounting from social media, police would then take the matter more seriously. And thankfully, Judy would be given some charges that stuck. Judy was hit with first-degree burglary, first-degree property damage, and unlawful use of a weapon. She was then taken to a mental facility for psychiatric treatment. The Suarez family would go on to get an order of protection to keep the woman from ever returning to their property. This protection order is valid through February 14th of 2024 and establishes that Judy Klein cannot be within 300 feet of the Suarez household. In addition to the crimes mentioned previously, Judy would also later be indicted in a civil rights hate crime suit for interfering interference with the right to fair housing on May 10th of 2023. This case is still ongoing. This next story involves a chilling Ring camera video that was captured in the middle of the night, showcasing an apparently escaped woman in handcuffs pleading for help. At a Montgomery County, Texas home in 2018, a woman seemingly manifests from the night, running to the door of Jenny Drude's home at about 3:20 in the morning. While homeowner Jenny was asleep at the time, her Ring camera captured the encounter. This frantic visitor appeared to be wearing some sort of handcuff-like restraints around her wrists. This, when combined with her frightened demeanor, it appeared as if she had just escaped the kidnapping or was perhaps a sex trafficking victim that had gotten loose. The woman looked completely terrified. She was also barefoot and apparently had no pants on. Looked like she had just gotten out of a pretty dire situation, to say the least. After ringing Jenny's doorbell, the visitor's eyes darted towards the street as if she was concerned that she was being followed. And after a short time, realizing that the homeowner wasn't going to answer the door, she vanished back into the night. A little bit later, another resident of the home would answer the door, but this mysterious visitor had completely disappeared and was nowhere to be found. In the morning, after waking up, Jenny reviewed the footage and was stricken with fear and regret that she wasn't awake to help the woman out. But she still wanted to do the best she could after the fact to figure out what happened. Wanting to help this poor woman, Jenny talked to a few of her friends as well as some of her neighbors, and after consulting with these individuals, a decision was made to post the Ring camera footage online to raise awareness. And due to the bizarre and unsettling nature of this footage, it would go absolutely viral, getting millions of views in a matter of days. Local Texas authorities also started to look into the case and search for clues as to who this woman could possibly be and who or what exactly she was running from. Early efforts from law enforcement in identifying or making sense of the story were fruitless. Meanwhile, online, thousands of internet sleuths would take a crack at the mystery, spinning their own narratives and explanations for the visit. Jenny commented on these internet sleuths, saying,
"Everybody thinks they can solve a crime." There was even a Facebook group made called Sunrise Ranch Mystery Girl, and it was just people speculating on what was happening. And there was literally an 8-second video, and they've come to all these conclusions and theories.
A large bulk of these theories that Jenny is referring to are individuals online who believed that this mysterious woman was an escaped sex trafficking victim who had escaped capture and was seeking refuge. Eventually, though, some leads would come in, and the mystery of what led up to this handcuffed woman visiting Jenny's residence started to make sense. And that's because, well, the woman herself would come forward. Several days after Jenny's footage was posted to the internet, law enforcement authorities were actually contacted by a woman identified as Lauren. And turns out this Lauren girl was the woman in the Ring camera footage. Lauren would explain to police that the individual she was running from was her then boyfriend, 49-year-old Dennis Ray Collins. Lauren lived with Collins, and on the night of the incident, it appeared the man had placed her in bondage cuffs. After speaking with Lauren, the police determined that she had likely been sexually assaulted. When they learned of this, the cops would make an attempt to find and arrest Mr. Collins. They first visited the residence that both Lauren and Ray Collins lived at, but it appeared the man had vacated after Lauren came forward as the Ring camera girl. The fate of this man would be revealed, though, in short time, as days later, at another residence, Lauren's boyfriend, 49-year-old Dennis Ray Collins, was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound and an apparent suicide. So the mystery had been solved. Folks online rejoiced when they discovered that Lauren was safe, but curiously, the woman herself has somewhat of a conflicted view of this entire incident, even going on record in the media and forgiving the man. Quote, "I forgave Dennis long before he was gone and love him. I know he too forgave and loved me. People would like to paint Dennis or myself as entirely good or entirely evil, light or dark. Every human has both of these inside. It's important to note that Dennis Ray Collins had a prior history of sexual assault, the man pleading guilty to sexually abusing a woman in the year 2000 in a completely unrelated case. In a Ring camera mystery that captivated the internet, that was the story of the Handcuffed Woman. Law enforcement impersonators have been a common theme here on the channel in the last year or so, and the trend continues with Jeff Rushmore, a 19-year-old police impersonator who got caught on a Ring camera in 4K. On the night of June 3rd of 2019, in a West Chicago suburb, a young man dressed as a police detective approached the home of Frank Panzeca. The would-be detective rang the doorbell, and sometime later, Frank answers. The officer introduces himself as Jeff Rushmore, an investigator for the Winfield Police Department.
Hi, sorry to bother you so late. I'm Rushmore with the Winfield Police Department. I'm an investigator.
The young detective then tells Frank that somebody had gone missing in the neighborhood and he was investigating the case.
When your neighbors down the street reported a missing...
It's important to note that this detective makes no effort to come into the house, nor does he make any sort of overt threat. It just appears that he's, on official legit business. It seemed like he was genuinely trying to solve a crime. Turns out this wouldn't be the only house that the youthful investigator approached, as he also tried knocking on another door in the neighborhood, however nobody came to answer it.
Can you open the door?
Nothing showing.
2640 George, the individual's not answering the door.
Age aside though, Ring camera footage capturing Agent Rushmore certainly portrayed him as a legit detective. For one, he carried a prominent police badge that he would flash to cameras as he visited. He also had some sort of walkie-talkie police scanner device that continuously was spouting out police scanner chatter, which added to the legitimacy of his presence, I guess. And when this agent went to a home and no one answered the door, he would take out his cell phone and relay to his apparent superiors that the homeowner wasn't present. But after several nights of doing this, turns out there were other people in this neighborhood who were like Frank and felt that something was off about this guy. He was just too young. People began reporting this youthful detective to the Wheaton Police Department, and they started their own investigation. Police would get their hands on some of the Ring camera footage and strangely found that the young man didn't threaten or try to enter any of the residences as you might expect. It almost seemed like he was simply role-playing or something for his own amusement. Police would confirm that there was certainly no Agent Rushmore, but they also didn't really notice anything overtly concerning outside of the fact that he was an impersonator. Like, they didn't think he was trying to burgle people. Regardless, they wanted him to stop. The police would author this tweet urging the public to be on the lookout for Rushmore. Wheaton police are investigating reports of this individual impersonating a police officer / detective on June 3rd and 4th. These images show the suspect Wheaton police are seeking, a white male in his 20s displaying a badge. Anyone with info should call Lieutenant Cooley. Here are an actual Wheaton police detective shield and Wheaton police star for reference. Wheaton police officers / detectives will always identify themselves by uniform or credentials. Residents may call the police department to verify an officer's identity. On June 5th, after a tip, police would catch up with Jeff Rushmore and make an arrest. It turns out this was actually something of a conspiracy and there were many fake agents involved in Rushmore's activities. Update. 12:55 p.m. on June 6th of 2019, Wheaton Police Department has 3 suspects in custody, including the individual who is approaching homes and impersonating an officer. The investigation continues as a 4th person may have been involved. Charges will be announced shortly and we will update at that time. It turns out Agent Rushmore had a lot of help. Investigator Jeff Rushmore was actually 19-year-old Thomas Cozy, and he was arrested alongside 19-year-old Luke Halstead, 19-year-old Corey Abendroth, and 22-year-old Kong Dam. All were arrested and charged with false impersonation of a police officer. As mentioned previously, Thomas Cozy was the one responsible for portraying the ruse of an officer. The role of the other 3 individuals was to perform surveillance from a getaway vehicle that was parked near the houses that Thomas would visit. What's curious about this case is that it's never been explicitly stated that these men attempted to burgle the homes they visited under the ruse of being detectives. And so I go back to what I said earlier, it almost seems like these guys boys were just really stupid and thought it was fun to just roleplay as detectives. The apparent ringleader of the operation, Thomas Cozy, his bail was set at $35,000. His accused henchmen had lower bonds. This case has since been closed, and I'm unable to ascertain the specific punishments that these boys received. A disturbing footnote to this story is that in October of 2023, now 23-year-old Thomas Cozy has reportedly been arrested for allegedly sexually abusing a 15-year-old girl. The man was charged with third-degree sexual abuse, which is a Class C felony, and has been ordered to not have any contact with the victim. He was placed in jail and held on a $10,000 bond. Our next story details the curious case of Tracy Lynn Allen, a woman who went door to door claiming she was a member of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. While many in the neighborhood assumed that she was nothing more than a local crackhead, the woman assured that she was legit. Tracy Lynn Allen, a 54-year-old woman from Dallas, Georgia, decided to parade through the Falcon Shore neighborhood on March 10th of 2023. It was a neighborhood that she knew all too well, as she had been previously given criminal charges for trespassing there back in 2018. Tracy would go door to door and speak with families that answered.
I was looking for the crooks, the Cowards residents. Do the Cowards live here? Okay, if you do know who they are, let them know Tracy Allen with the GBI is looking for them.
One family that was visited by Tracy said that they spotted a gun holster within her waistband and thought that she may have been carrying.
In the front of her waistband of her pants, she had what appears to be a gun holster.
Other videos from Tracy's bizarre visits would often show her holding a cell phone like she was recording some conversation. One neighbor said, quote, "It's strange. She had her phone out too, like she was ready to record something. It just felt weird. It's creepy to the extent someone would go." Tracy Allen's suspicious activity would be reported to police, and they would track her down and make an arrest. The woman was arrested and booked for the felony charge of impersonating a public official or employee, willful obstruction of a law enforcement officer, and criminal trespassing. The woman was booked in Cobb County Adult Detention Center with a bond just under $3,000. Records indicate that she's currently still in confinement. With these charges, in my opinion, it appears that after police performed an investigation, they determined that she was trying to get into people's houses under the premise of her being some sort of agent. But I can't confirm this, but that's just what it sounds like. But that was the story of Tracy Lynn Allen, the fake GBI investigator. Another devious method that would-be burglars attempt to use to try to get access to your front door is the fake delivery driver scheme. In April of 2023, at an unsuspecting home in East Haven, Connecticut, a criminal by the name of Javier Otero allegedly attempted to gain access to an East Haven home by pretending to be a delivery driver. This 37-year-old man certainly had bad intentions, and it's thought that he was carrying a firearm. However, when he tried to execute his ruse, well, he was met with a bit of a surprise. When trying to barrel his way into the door, the homeowner pushes the shit out of him.
I don't know if this is for you.
After being knocked from the doorstep, Otero looked stunned and would beeline back to his vehicle and get the hell out of Dodge. This clip would go viral. Despite the man's attempt failing, police still wanted to analyze the footage to hopefully identify him and go in for an arrest. Cross-examining the man's face from the video and using social media, they determined that Javier Otero was the individual responsible. Officers would later track him down at a family member's house in nearby Hartford, Connecticut. On April 14th of 2023, Javier was arrested and booked in jail. During their investigation of Javier, they discovered that the man had plans for a second home invasion attempt that was to be perpetrated in Manchester. The suspect allegedly had plans to zip tie and rob the residents of this property. Officers then discovered that Javier had an accomplice, 26-year-old John Carrasquillo Torres. This man was arrested as well. On top of all this, police would perform a search of Javier's home where they found 1.1 kilos of fentanyl as well as paraphernalia that was commonly used to produce drugs. Both suspects were held on a $250,000 bond. Some have described the individual in this next story the worst neighbor in all of the United Kingdom. This is the story of Stephen Groves. Neighbors can be quite the hassle, especially the paranoid and neurotic ones. One suspicious and paranoid neighbor, 56-year-old Stephen Groves, was under the delusion that the Ring camera installed by his neighbors outside their door in the communal breezeway was being used to spy on him. The residents that set up this Ring camera, a woman named Victoria and the woman's uncle, were doing no such activity. But this wouldn't stop Stephen Groves from making repeated visits to the camera to sabotage it, many of these visits being caught by the Ring camera itself. Stephen Groves was not only guilty of tampering with their Ring devices, he also sabotaged caregivers that were helping Victoria's uncle. Victoria's uncle suffered from Parkinson's, and as a result of this, a caregiver would sometimes visit the property to provide medical aid. It's been reported that Groves once locked a caregiver out of the communal alleyway that was used to get into Victoria's residence. An incident involving Stephen Groves cutting the Ring camera's wires with a set of pliers would result in him having to go to court, pleading guilty to criminal damages, and he was handed a conditional discharge in August of 2021. And after this first bout of legal trouble, when Stephen was released, he would just continue getting in more shit with the neighbors, sabotaging their Ring devices and causing havoc. At one point, Steve would take a hammer to a Ring camera on the property. He would defile Ring cameras with markers and pins. One video shows the man getting a bit of instant karma when a sabotage attempt results in a door hitting him on the back. After continuous and repeated attempts of sabotage in 2022, Victoria would take the man to court again. Stephen Groves would confess to the courts and told him that his sabotage of the Ring camera devices was done because he felt like a prisoner in his own home due to the watchful eye of the camera. He told the court, quote, "They put a camera right next to my door and they just can't do that. Where are my rights? Pathetic things I've done because of that camera. I acted like an idiot because they are breaching my fundamental rights." The paranoid neighbor was ordered to pay £100 to each victim, issued a 2-year restraining order, a 12-week electronic curfew, and 20 days of probation. Victoria didn't feel like this was enough. She says, quote, "I'm really disappointed. £100 in compensation is an insult, really. It won't compensate for losing a carer and all the stress and sleepless nights we've endured. I'm going to send the money to Ukraine so maybe some good can come out of it." And she was right about this punishment not being enough, because Stephen would continue his activity. Several months later, the man would issue threats against the family, with Groves threatening to, quote, "cut up the caregivers that visited the house." Groves even allegedly told one carer that he would, quote, "chop her up and put her in the fucking bin," unquote. Because of the man's behavior, caregivers were afraid to visit the property, which resulted in Victoria's uncle sometimes going without care. The situation surrounding Stephen Groves and Victoria's family is still somewhat ongoing, and I wouldn't be surprised if more Ring camera footage of this guy winds up on the internet. This story involves one of the most horrifying burglaries ever caught on Ring camera surveillance, the story of Christopher Sargent. In this terrifying video, recorded on the night of May 1st of 2020, a British man in Upminster, East London, England by the name of Christopher Sargent did something that Javier Otero couldn't get away with. Christopher Sargent pretended to be a delivery driver, but he actually got access to the house. Christopher Sargent was masquerading as a delivery driver, even taking a photo of the package that he was supposedly delivering, when suddenly he breaks the act and barges into the home that he's at. Several accomplices file in behind him, and you can hear a woman screaming in the background.
I've got a parcel for you, mate. Dude, I'll put it on your door and take it because coronavirus. Yeah.
The group of home invaders consisted of Christopher Sargent, Ayapal Singh, and Anthony Lanceles. The raiders quickly detained the family that was present at the home, which consisted of a mother, father, a son, and daughter, the gang of thieves holding knives to the victims' throats. During the robbery, the father suffered a knife wound to his head, while the mother would suffer a knife wound to the neck. Christopher and company were asking the family where the safe was, but the family proclaimed that they didn't have any money and offered jewelry instead. Upon hearing this, Christopher put his knife against the 11-year-old son's throat, telling the father that his son would be killed if the safe wasn't revealed. The men then started beating up on the father, and sadly, at this moment, the courageous son moved to help his dad, but during this act, he was shot in the shoulder by one of the robbers. Now realizing that they were dealing with some deadly criminals, the mother quickly gave them all the jewelry that she had, and after getting the valuable possessions, the men ran out of the house with about 20,000 pounds of jewelry and other valuables. Shortly after, authorities and medics arrived, and the boy was taken to the hospital. He was placed into an induced coma while the rest of the family's wounds were treated. During the investigation of this crime, detectives at the Met Specialist Crime Command were able to trace the license plate and mobile phone data from the area, as well as use the doorbell footage to find the culprits. Thankfully, the boy that was shot managed to survive, and all three men were later arrested and charged. Christopher Sargent would plead guilty to robbery and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Ayapal Singh was also found guilty of robbery and was sentenced to serve 20 years behind bars. Anthony Lanceles, also charged with robbery, was sentenced to serve 18 years in jail. And well, you made it to the end. Those were the ring camera arrests. Let me know what you guys thought about this video down below in the comments section, and let me know who or what you want me to talk about next. I want to give a major shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys. Wavy Web Surf out. Peace.